Destiny 2 Lightfall review. So, Lightfall came out a few days ago, and it's getting quite a mixed review from the community overall. So we'll go through a few points today, and we'll wrap it up with my thoughts. So we'll start off with the new subclass, Strand. Now, I've completed the campaign on my Hunter, both normal and legendary, and I've started on my Warlock, and I haven't really done much past the first mission and a little bit of seasonal content on my Warlock. But on my Hunter I've done a decent amount. I've put a good 20-ish hours into the game by now. Day one I went in on normal mode, and we'll get to that in a minute on the power difficulty thing, but it worked out pretty well. So, as I was saying, Strand is the new subclass ability, and people are quite mixed, I'll say for sure. It's definitely depends on what your main character is. So, Hunters are having a decent time, mainly for the fact that we can create infinite tethers that we can go to. Titans are also having a decent time with their super and some of their ability sets. Now, Warlocks are the people I feel bad for. If you're a Warlock main, I'm really sorry, because you're missing one of the biggest appeals, I would say, to Strand, and that's the ability to juggle an enemy in place and add up a shit ton of damage on them without letting them move. You could kind of do that with stasis before, but as soon as you started damaging an enemy who was frozen, they would just be able to break out of that stasis shard. It'll do a bunch of damage, but it would be kind of lackluster. So that's a little bit disappointing for Warlock mains. The supers, the Hunter super is really good for damage. It's close range, and does have some crowd control abilities. However, the cloud striders, the crowd control abilities could use a little bit of improvements, but anything more would probably be a bit too much. So I understand why it is what it is. Now, Titans, their super is great, as it allows them to do incredible crowd control, like some of the best crowd control for high level content that I think we've ever seen. And it simply is just the fact that you can keep an enemy suspended in the air with the tangle ability. Now that is such a strong ability that I think it does have some staying power. So here it is on the Hunter. As you can see, you can just suspend enemies, and with the right build, I believe this could be pretty good. And I'm not going to give you a full deep dive into all the abilities, but just know that for the most part it feels great. I do like the animations, of course, on the Warlock, especially with the melee, and the supers are really cool in concept. It just doesn't really hold up with what it actually does. Now, it's possible that some of the aspects that we'll be getting later on will change that. And on that note, the fact that the aspects were originally time gated and technically still are is quite a big disappointment for a lot of people in the community. For the simple fact that we don't want to wait 2 weeks for the raid to be done. We want to be able to use everything now. I think a bunch of people are thinking, well, Bungie's doing this for balancing because they're afraid that someone will find something OP that will break the raid race, but it looks like that's unlikely. I don't think anyone's going to be running Strand day one because it's very close range. You're putting yourself in danger a lot of the time. And it just isn't going to be viable for survivability, which is the main thing that you want to go for in a day run raid race. So it's it's a little disappointing of the fact that they were originally time gating it. At least the first set of time gated stuff would have been available in the first weekly reset, and then we would have gotten the rest after the raid race. However, as of today, Bungie released a This Week at Bungie saying that they are going to untime gate everything on the weekly reset, meaning that we do not have to wait for the raid race to be completed to get the full access to all of our Strand abilities, which is nice. However, I don't think it's going to change Strand too much as a whole. I think like all the default stuff, well, the stuff that's available right now is good enough, and without some like game changing aspects and fragments, then the supers aren't going to change much, like how good it is in general. So Strand, yeah, quite mixed bag on that. And this also ties into the next topic, and that's campaign. So the campaign as a whole is pretty good. I found the initial run on normal difficulty to actually be pretty difficult because I was so under leveled in my gear, and everything that you've got right now is power level 16. Everything is 1600, and that's the base power level. So they've also made older raids 1600 as base power level. All of our older weapons even are 1600 power level. So it's nice that everything's brought up a bit, but the soft cap is 1750, which you're not really gonna hit doing normal difficulty. On me, the final mission is 1750 on both legendary and normal. And I found the modifiers for legend difficulty haven't made that much of a difference compared to the modifiers in the Witch Queen. And that is a sentiment that I'm seeing a lot of the community also parrot, is the fact that as a whole the campaign is not as hard as Witch Queen is. And some parts of me agree with that and some parts disagree, and it's mainly just it's encounter to encounter. Some parts are as a whole easier to complete than Witch Queen, but then some parts are just harder. I would say the final boss, once you know what you're doing, is not the hardest, and you kind of can cheese it, which is a shame, but it's also nice for people that are trying to complete it, you know. But it doesn't seem like it should be like that. There is also some things in the final boss that might be a bit buggy. We don't know for sure if it's a design choice or not yet. There is just one attack where the boss can shoot through a wall, and yeah, not the best. And it's unknown if that's really intentional or not. I would guess it's intentional in the fact that it's kind of like an anti-cheese thing where you can't just hide behind cover all the time. But the fact that it goes so fast, so hard, and so quick that you can't dodge it once it does start hitting you, that it's basically a one-shot. And it is a one-shot no matter what your power level is, as there is an effective power level cap to all content going forwards, which I do like, as it means that once you have hit that power level, that you don't have to worry about going too much over it. Now, does that mean that artifact bonus is useless now? Kind of, yeah. It's good for when your gear isn't max, like your actual armor and weapons aren't max power level, but for anything else, once you do have your pinnacle cap, there's not really any reason to go over, because your effective power level is going to be pinnacle for all content going forwards. So it was definitely a bit of a challenge first run. I did have to take one break for the normal difficulty, where I just took a break and leveled my gear up a bit and brought myself up to the effective power level, or close enough to it, where it was kind of easy in the final boss. The new enemies, Tormentors, they're scary when you first meet them, and they definitely can be scary, but once you know how to deal with them, they're kind of a joke, in my opinion. Like, mainly for the fact that you can do shit like this to them, and you can't do that to all of them. There are some of them that are just bosses that you can't do this to. And blinding grenades does work as well on them. So if you are struggling with Tormentors on either normal or legend difficulty, that is an easy way to choose them. So the next step, on the next portion of this video, we'll be talking about spoilers. So anything that you don't want to hear, just tune out now. If you're interested in the story and where it's going to go, I would tune out now. Mind you, you might not want to tune out now, because that's the main problem at the moment, and that is the fact that the story doesn't really go anywhere. It introduces a bunch of new interesting ideas, but it doesn't really fully develop them and explain them. It does give us some explanation, and it gives us a lot of things that we can infer, but not actually confirm 100%. Now, initially, you might think that's great. We've got a bunch of new mysteries, but in the end, unfortunately, it just feels lackluster because of how big and how important to the plot these mysteries are. So we get this new area, or this new, I guess, MacGuffin you could say, called the Veil. That's kind of like the whole antithesis of this expansion. The Witness basically wants to get this Veil, and it's going all out trying to get it. And that's what Callus is sent down to eventually try and secure. And Callus is the final boss, and it's a pretty cool fight. Now, like I said, you can cheese it, and the arena is a little lacking in the fact that it's just a circular arena. There's not really much more to it past then, and it does have two phases, whereas the second phase the arena shrinks a little bit, and this final arena is taking place in this new area, this new MacGuffin called the Veil. Now the Veil is something that you've probably heard of before if you followed the lore, and we do not get any more answers to what it is. We do get some, like I said, heavy inferences of what it could be. My guess is it's either another species of traveler, or it's similar to the Traveler, or it's what happens when the Traveler and the Witness join, and this could be what the final shape is. And it would make sense for the simple fact that in the end of Lightfall, the Traveler supposedly dies. The Witness joins the Traveler, they merge somehow, or the Witness goes through a portal. It's not entirely clear, and it's not entirely clear that the Traveler dies either. In fact, the only reason that you really get to know that is through talking to some of the vendors at the tower after the campaign is over. Now, that's probably one of the biggest gripes I have, is the fact that such an important moment like that is kind of not really explained properly, and it's literally explained through dialogue. Like, you don't really want to tell stuff, you want to show, not tell in the story. Yeah, the fact that the Traveler is supposedly dead, or it's not dead, it's just not giving off light anymore, would, to me at least, make sense that the Veil is another form of intense power calls or energy that can fuel us, whether that be light or dark, and that's why we are still here, why our ghosts are still here, and why we still have our powers. Now, of course, Bungie can't just remove our powers all of a sudden and not give them back, because that would really change the game. It would be a completely different game at that point. So there's both an in-universe explanation and a real-life explanation of why these things have happened. So the main problem I think the community is having is the fact that we aren't getting anything explained, and that's fair. I would agree that there's a lot of mystery and they're really not explaining it enough in the game. Now, do I think a lot of people are overreacting to it? Yes, I'd definitely say that. And I'd also say, what did people expect? I mean, it's the penultimate expansion, you know, like, there's only so many places that the game can go at the moment. So they kind of need to introduce something that will, you know, change or give us more time to develop things before the, you know, the final shape comes out. And if there is these supposed leaks, if they're supposed to be believed, it would be interesting on the fact that this is kind of like a Destiny 1 vanilla sort of happenstance to the expansions, whereas if you didn't know, vanilla Destiny 1 was meant to have Taken King combined. Of course the story was going to be different as a whole, but the story was going to be combined in some way, and Taken King was even going to be the raid was going to be combined with Crota's End. That was the original intent for the expansion, and that's supposedly what's happened here with Lightfall and Final Shape. Supposedly a bunch of this stuff was going to be in Final Shape, and they added quite a few things on, and they developed it into its own expansion. I don't know how much I believe that, because that could just be a bunch of bullshit. But supposedly it's coming from like semi-trusted sources, so I wouldn't be surprised. Now, what they've done with it is not bad. Like I said, it's not horrible, but it's just not as good as Witch Queen, which is what a bunch of people were hoping this was going to be on par or better than the Witch Queen, which it's not. Witch Queen just had a lot more interesting characters. We had a lot more build-up story-wise to these characters. Like the Witness, we've had glimpses of it, but we don't really understand the Witness or what the Witness's intentions are, and I think that's something that does hold back this expansion and its villains quite a lot. I mean, we do have Callus as a villain, which is, you know, one of the biggest villains we've had in Destiny 2, has been there since the very beginning. And his ending to some might be a bit lackluster, and I can definitely see where they're coming from. Another thing with the story is there's a lot of focus on Strand, and if this supposed leaks are to be believed, it would make sense because they didn't really have much of a story planned, as this would have been, you know, kind of like side content to Final Shape. And that's very possible, because basically most of the campaign is about us getting our Strand abilities, while at the same time trying to stop Callus and the Witness from getting to the Veil, which is how the Witness was able to connect to the Traveler and supposedly either kill it or disable it in some way. So that's kind of like the broad strokes of the story. There are some other things that are like the Cloud Striders and the Amuna. The Cloud Striders, they're alright. Again, you're gonna hear me say that a lot in this impromptu review. It's alright. I don't think it's either bad or amazing. I think it's decent for what it is. I'm basically saying it is what it is. Now, one of the characters was obviously gonna die, that being Rohan, and I mean, we could have seen that from a mile away. And his death was very choreographed and everything. I mean, if you know anything about, you know, character tropes, it was kind of obvious, especially with how Nimbus is written in the story as a whole as well. They are basically very archetypical characters in the fact that you've got a young rookie and the grizzled veteran, and the grizzled veteran dies an early death, and the rookie has to learn to take responsibility. It's very obvious that was going to happen with this, but you know, this death was okay. It wasn't, I mean, at least it made sense in the story, even if it was obvious it was going to happen. It was alright. Like I said, that's what I'm going to say for all of this, is it was alright. I wouldn't recommend buying it at its full price, and I wouldn't recommend buying it for 75% of the price. Recommend just waiting for it to get to like 50% off or something, or just watching everything, all the cutscenes online. And there was a lot of cutscenes in this, a lot of pre-rendered cutscenes, which looked very pretty and they looked nice in general. Like they worked well in the story, but that might be a bit of a drawback for some people, that we're spending so much time in the cutscenes instead of actually playing the game, which there is a decent amount to play in the game, even if it is only 8 missions. Those 8 missions they're not bad. There are some really big highlights, I would say, in this expansion, in the fact that you have that Callus fight, and then you have the lead up to the Callus fight. Basically, the entire last can go shut the fuck up. I'm gonna go to orbit. Yeah, the entire final mission was really cool, apart from the Strand not really grappling 100% of the time correctly. It seems a little bit iffy with moving targets. I mean, generally, as long as they are ahead of you, it should be fine. However, I have had it where it just stops working when I haven't touched any buttons, which you can cancel strand grapple, which is good, and it helps some of the build crafting as well, mainly for hunters having infinite grenades. I'm not sure if that's going to get patched. It might be, but knowing how the community feels with how long the cooldown for the grenades are in general, it might not be patched either. Now the grenades and how they work with the grapple, it's fun and the grapple feels good, but it does suck in the fact that you're basically putting yourself in the enemy's face, and if you don't one-shot the enemy, then you're in a tough situation. Yeah, it works in the campaign, and there are these points where you pick up Strand in the missions, and you don't have to. In fact, the whole campaign you don't have to use Strand at all, and you can beat it without Strand, apart from one section, I believe, where you're forced to use it. It might be, yeah, there might be a few sections that you're actually forced to use it, but you don't have to use it. You know, there is a lot of encounters where you can just ignore it and still complete the encounters just fine. I'm not sure how much of that is Bungie saying, oh, this might not work so well, or you just don't like this, just use whatever you want. Very mixed bag there as a whole. So yeah, Strand, you do use it a lot in the campaign. You do get faster cooldowns in the campaign, which is where a lot of people are criticizing Strand at the moment, is once you actually fully unlock it and are able to equip it at any point, the cooldowns are a lot longer, and for the fact that most of your abilities are all like support abilities as opposed to high damage, and there is a lot of damaging abilities, but a lot of the most useful stuff with Strand right now is support abilities, and a lot of those do have really long cooldowns. So I wouldn't be surprised if that changes. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, you do get strand throughout the campaign, and then you fully unlock it at the end. You have to get the aspects, and as you saw when I loaded into orbit there, you get these strands, strand meditations, and these are basically how you buy the new fragments, or yeah, new fragments. As you can see, I bought all of them that I can right now. Of course, next week I'll be able to buy the rest. You only get 2 aspects as of now, and I think that's things that really, if we get something new to these, it could improve Strand significantly. It could make it really strong, could make it really fun. If we get stuff that can maybe change how some of our abilities work in general, that would be nice. So yeah, that's the Strand. That's the campaign and in general. Now, as far as the writing goes and the story, I don't really mind that it's not really giving us all these answers. I mean, I don't know what a lot of people were expecting. Like I said before, there's not really many places it can go. I do find that Nimbus can be a little cringe sometimes. There was one point where it just really didn't work. I mean, it's Bungie trying to throw in some humor in there, but they haven't really gotten humor. It can be a bit tone deaf sometimes. There was one moment that actually did make me laugh in the campaign. That's the first mission where Osiris goes flying out of a drop pod. That was not bad. But there is one point at the end of the campaign where Nimbus acts in a way that just is very inappropriate to the situation. Even if he's ignorant to the full grasp of it, he should still be able to read the room, you know. But no, that's, as a whole, it's not as bad as I think people are saying. I think a lot of people are overreacting. I think a lot of people had a lot of expectations which they weren't met, and that's fair that they are upset their expectations weren't matched, especially for the price of the actual campaign right now. Like I said, wait for it to go on discount. Like I said, if you really want to get it, go for it. If you're really into Destiny 2 like I am and a bunch of my friends are, then yes, I'd say go for it, but you probably don't need convincing because you probably already have it if you're that in-depth to all of this. I'm sure we're going to get more explanations for the story later in the season and the next season. Whether this should have been an off year for Bungie, I don't know. I think in the end, once Lightfall comes out, we're going to look back on this and say, well, as a whole, it's not bad. And I think there's definitely going to be some interesting things that we discover along the way. This also might be the last new subclass that's added to the game, which is alright. You can tell because the way they've changed the UI. I think originally they were intending to have 3 light and 3 dark, but that might have changed along the way. We don't know for sure. And the new Guardian rank system is alright. Apparently it's crashing some people's games when they go to this screen. Hasn't for me. I've only had 2 crashes, and it was in the campaign when you use grapple. But this screen, it works. It will definitely help new light players understand more about the game, but there's so much in the game now, and there's so much that has been removed through sunsetting, and there's so much that's left behind in Destiny 1 that it is hard to recommend someone who's never played this before or never followed any of the story before, because apart from a semi-brief intro cutscene, you don't get much out of like the previous history, because you do have this page here, but the timeline isn't actually, you know, forced on you. And I don't think it should be forced on you, but there should be a bit more of a better explanation, or maybe there should be just a little thing saying, oh, if you want to know what's happened in the past, then go here. Also, they really need to add Destiny 1's timeline here as well, because new players won't know the impact of the Traveler or Waking. They won't know the impact of the Red War. They won't know who Cabal are. They won't know who the Taken are. They won't know any of that. They won't know who Oryx is. So there's a lot a lot of parts that they really could have added here, and they should just add the cinematics here as well. Just have the cinematics so you can click on it and it shows you the cinematics or the Sunset DLCs. That'd be great. It's good they're showing seasons here and everything, but again, it's just a short paragraph really. So yeah, as a whole, there's a lot of negative, but the positives are enough to keep me going, and I'm sure it'll be enough to keep a lot of people going. I'm sure the season's going to be decent. The stuff we've got so far is alright. Just we thought Amanda died at the beginning, she didn't, and there seems to be some interesting writing there. Now I think it's 2 different teams that do seasonal and expansions. Of course their story lines are all going to be intertwined and everything, but how they actually deliver the content is separate. And that's another thing, is we're going to see some changes to how seasons are as a whole and how they're delivered. It is a little bit different now. There's a lot less currencies to worry about, so that's a bit of a quality of life change. Another quality of life change is the UI and the fact that we have a mod screen now where you can actually go through and click everything individually. You can see your overview. And another thing, and this ties directly into your Guardian rank, is loadouts. You can get up to 10 of them. Now, with the way that build crafting is at the moment, it might not actually be worth making any loadouts until we can, you know, get some, you know, decent stuff out of our artifact. And until then, we can't really do anything here that's of much impact to the game, and I think that's more as a whole to do with the fact that they have changed how build crafting works. They have nerfed some things, they have removed some things, and it feels kind of lackluster. Whereas before we had like our moments where we could get charged, like charged with light or something like that. That was a lot better than the new armor charges are. Like the new armor charges, I do feel a lot more lackluster, and the fact that you have to mod to get orbs to drop on your weapons, you have to use an armor mod for that now. I think that's another big part of that. And I know it's trying to bring our power level down a little bit so we can't just steamroll content, but on the same hand, it's nerfing actually, you know, leveling a weapon up. The only thing that you actually get is slightly better stats and masterwork. That's all you really get now for masterworking a weapon, which again a bit sad. You know, before, you know, you masterwork the weapon, it would give you orbs whenever you got multi kills, but no, you have to mod for that now. At least you don't have to masterwork your weapons to get orbs. That's a positive, I guess, you can take away from it. Yeah, that's about it, I'd say. I know it was kind of haphazard at the end, but you know, it's like I said, it's not bad. It's not exceptional either. I'd wait till later in the year and to actually give a proper conclusion to all of this. I think there's a lot that will be explained in the near future, and I think the raid might have a bit of an impact to that because the raid isn't out yet. It's likely going to be something with Nezarec. However, the exotic is Vex Caliber, a heavy glaive, so it might be Nezarec with the Vex. It could be the Vex with Nezarec. Nezarec, yeah, Minecraft. Nezarec. So yeah, that's as a whole. Like I said, mixed. I again really don't go out of your way and just blindly hate on something because that's what everyone else is doing. And come to your own conclusions. If you're interested in giving it a go and you're willing to spend the money, then do it. But don't be dissuaded because other people are, you know, kind of shitting on it. And yeah, like I said before, I think it might be a bit of an overreaction. People are saying this is worse than Shadowkeep. It's not. It's not worse than Shadowkeep was bad, and thankfully this is not as bad as Shadowkeep. And here you can see one of the best things added in this season. We got the torture giants. I'm having a stroke. I think it's time that I come to a conclusion with this this video, and just enjoy, enjoy, you know, the new season and new expansion, and you know, we've got another year to go through, another year of content, and then it's gonna be it. It's gonna be over in over a year, and it's kind of crazy to think about this game. I mean, of course, the game's not going away, but like the story is coming to an end, which is kind of crazy. And I'm not sure if they're gonna do another Destiny game. They're alluding to it. I don't know. Just enjoy what it is what I'm trying to say, and hope you enjoy everything that we've got right now. Look forward to seeing you out there, and hope you found some of my words, some of my incoherent ramblings, somewhat helpful or insightful. And I guess see you next time.